I think one thing that used to irk me was that I think AR kind of got put into the space of it's just novelty, which it isn't. And it is quite a tough challenge to overcome with a lot of people, clients included, because of what's already been done or because of what other agencies are doing. If I had to put it simply, just try it in the right way.
I think mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality will all become far more valuable, far more, utility driven. But a lot of that will be powered by AI and machine learning.
If you could invent a completely new sense that humans don't currently have, what would it be? And how would it transform our interactions with technology?
This thing is way too clever nowadays.
I think you got the short straw.
Alter ego.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brew Bytes with me, Nadeem Ibrahim. Today, I'm actually joined by two game changers, I would say, when it comes to AR, technology, and digital innovation. And these guys, for the last couple of years, have actually been making some leaps and bounds through the GCC, and especially, I would say, in Saudi Arabia. Today, I'm joined by Vish and Hassan from Atomic. Is it Atomic, I would say?
That's right, Atomic.
Yeah, nice. And today we're going to be exploring how they have transforming the industry in this region, particularly across AR and other technologies. But before we go into this, guys, right, I've got a small question I want to ask you. Normally I ask about what's your go-to game when you were growing up, but I want to ask you, Vish, first, okay? Growing up, what was the one piece of technology or, like transformation piece of item that you were mostly close to?
Yeah, see, this is gonna be bad because Hassan's so much younger than me. He's gonna say something and he's gonna think about what I say and be disappointed. I would probably say the Game Boy changed my life.
Mate, you're making me
the game
older.
The Game Boy was a thing for me, man. That changed like the whole having something mobile, something that you can take wherever you go. I think that was the start.
And Hassan?
Mine was the Nintendo DS.
Oh God!
The first iteration.
Look, we're in the same space.
Kind of. And it's actually so interesting because I've quoted that on so many occasions because it was the first handheld with two screens.
With two screens,
yeah. And one was touch screen and the games at the time and
it was color, right? The DS.
Yeah, of course. Come on.
Oh yeah, no. See, the Game Boy was.
You mean black and white?
Well, no, it was kind of like shades of green.
Yeah, no.
Shades of green.
I had color. This was.
Yeah.
But you are showing our age now, I would say, because like you talk about touchscreen, I can't even remember touchscreen.
What was yours?
Mine was Spectrum.
No, that's even older than the Game Boy,
exactly,
surely.
And you're showing my age, but I think we're very similar age.
Yeah.
What the hell is
I
that?
was just cooler, maybe.
The Spectrum is where you had this cassette and you would put it in. And this, you want to play Pac-Man, it would take about maybe 30 minutes or 20 minutes to load, making the squeaker noise of
Yeah, but like that was far from game-changing technology, no? Like that was
At the time, it probably was.
No.
It was because then you had like a joystick that you would then.
Yeah, I had an Amiga. I think I had a Commodore 64
I was
as
going
well.
to say, C64, yeah.
But I didn't think neither of those made me feel like the world's getting amazing. Like, but the Game Boy did. That was.
But did any of these like pieces of technology you're talking about like ever shape your career?
I wouldn't have thought yes at the time, but I could probably post-rationalize an answer. Like, I think the idea of having entertainment on the go, the idea of being able to entertain yourself and more importantly, play with others. I think that made that was game changing. Like even on the Game Boy, the graphics were basic. Yeah. Like, it was batteries and whatever, cartridges. But the fact that you could play with, your brother or your friends on the go, wherever you were, I think that did make a big difference. And I do think that kind of handheld technology has been something which has maybe inadvertently, maybe not directly, but it has led to where we are today.
Okay.
I think similarly, playing with others, speaking to others. I think the DS at the time had like a chat feature, but I think you had to be within similar proximity. I don't think it was I can't remember. But the super interesting thing is, given where we are now, the DS is the first time I'd ever experienced AR. And I've quoted this many times when we first started working together, because they used to give you this, I believe it was like a pack of cards you got, and you had to use the DS camera to scan it, and the cards would come to life. And at the time, I was like, this is mental, because you could lay it out and make your game depending on how big you wanted it. And I mean, it was augmented reality, but
Nintendo they've
always been ahead. Yeah.
And they still are doing things.
You think
I think so. Yeah.
Serious?
I think they've been pretty focused and pretty disciplined about their lane, unlike a lot of other companies, right? I think most companies, they have a hit and then they try and figure out where else they should play. But I think Nintendo have been pretty core to gaming, and especially the audience within gaming that they're aiming at. And so, it feels like when you look at their entire history of products, they feel linked. They feel like they make sense.
Look, I would love to see the Sega Mega Drive make a comeback, because playing Sonic on a PS is just not the same as playing on a Sega.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It was made for Sega, but that was about the only good thing on a Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah,
Sonic.
Fair. Look, today we're going to be talking about AR and digital innovation, which you guys have sort of, as I mentioned in the beginning, sort of been transforming. But before we sort of dive deep into that, there's definitely something I think is worth touching base on, and that's your personal journey to get to where you are. And I think it's commendable from what you read, what you see with those type of work that you guys have been doing. But Vish, first coming to you, actually. What was your personal journey like? Did you come across any challenges, and did you ever foresee yourself being an evangelist in AR? If I put it like that?
No, I didn't. So I came from a advertising and planning background. So I worked strategy, communication strategy, creative strategy for a bunch of big network agencies on a bunch of big clients, firstly in London, and then I moved out to Dubai. My last 5 years were with Snapchat, and then a year ago, me and Hassan set up Atomic DXB, where a lot of what I had learned and we had learned together during our time at Snapchat led us into this field where we felt advertising, we felt experiences, brand experiences, we felt organic experiences could all be way more interesting. And AR or augmented reality, that's just the label of the technology that we play around with. But the idea behind it is more, how can we create something that is accessible, i.e. available on any phone? And how can we make it more memorable, more interesting, more playful than a video? And that's kind of what led us down this path. It wasn't an obsession with the technology. Neither of us are developers. Neither of us code. Neither of us do 3D modeling. But we're fascinated by the power of these interactions, and how on a simple, seemingly simple device like a phone, you can now have these kind of experiences.
Nice. And so you never envisaged yourself being in this space, right?
I always wanted to run my own business. I think that was something which was definitely a driving factor. What that was going to be, I didn't know until the lucky years I had at Snapchat.
Did you experience any challenges along that way though?
Running a business? Yeah, lots. Starting a business, running a business, growing a business, challenges throughout all of those things.
The great thing is that this region is thriving with businesses like what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a really nice environment. We spend a lot of time in Saudi Arabia, and the kingdom has a lot of exciting talent. People are creative and kind and community oriented. In the UAE and Dubai in particular, like, we come across founders in the tech space, in the digital space, in the innovation space all the time. Very rarely what we're doing, and there's often a little bit of, there's a business in that. But yes, it feels like the journey's been worthwhile so far. There's still a long way to go. We're only a year and a half in.
Amazing. And Hassan, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. Okay, because I think you're definitely part of a game-changing era, I would say, right? This is not showing our age by any ways, right? But I think the first question kind of sort of put that barrier in place in a way. But you're part of a game-changing era, and being in this region, there's a lot of endorsement and there's a lot of enthusiasm around new technologies. This is probably one of the fewest regions that I've ever been in where it's all about what's the next big thing, what's the next big tech that I could be part of. How do I create a trend, not be part of a trend? And from the work that I've seen you guys have been doing, you're clearly trying to sort of make headways around that sort of trend setting thing. Do you see this being a space that will scale out very quickly, and how do you think this region is adopting to those types of changes?
Scale quickly depends on what we consider quick. I think simple answer probably yes. I think the people are innately a bit more savvier. I think they're a bit more interested in this side. I think I don't know if it's because of typically most technologies and most new things are adopted in the West first, and then I think we've typically had to wait. Like me growing up in Dubai, I didn't even have an official Apple store. I know what a first world problem, but we didn't have an official Apple store for so long, but everyone had an iPhone. So now that things are happening in the region first and from the region, I think there's a lot of buzz. I think as Vish said, the kingdom is obviously leading the way in a lot of avenues. So it's kind of paving the way to that whole ethos of being the biggest and the best and the first. So the culture's already kind of ready to adopt it. So I do see it being adopted quickly.
Second part is that endorsing. Do you see a lot of brands, businesses endorsing this type of technology?
I think so. I think obviously there's some sectors that probably adopt it easier and more naturally than others. But from what we've seen from, again, the years I had at Snap, there was such a vast array of different kind of clients that we worked with, and they were all over it. I do think probably the value proposition and the purpose of this technology is slowly changing, or people are becoming more aware of what makes more sense for them. But I think the more we go around, I think COVID was an interesting time because the QR code became mainstream, and the QR code for us is
it was depleted at one point, right?
Yeah, exactly. The QR code, when they brought it back, even now, you go to a restaurant to be able to pay via the QR code. Yeah. But the fact that you go to a table and people are typically looking for the QR code even now, there's so much that we can do from that entry point. So adoption endorsement, I think, is very easy.
Very easy, yeah.
Yeah, I think at Snap, they used to talk about camera being the new operating system. I think, that's an interesting way to think. Right now, the way you access information is through the keyboard. Mm-hmm. But what if that was to change to the camera, right? And that opens up a whole world of opportunities if your business is able to come up with creative ways to bring information, entertainment to life through the camera, which is basically what we do. Mm-hmm. I think the verticals and the types of business, the categories within which we're seeing more and more interest in our technology is, I think people aren't just seeing this anymore as a nice thing to have in an ad campaign. They're starting to understand how it can actually help their business grow, how it should be included in their app for wayfinding, how it could be in their website for product demos or 3D visualizations, how it could, help you find friends if you are at an event. So there's all of a sudden there's a lot more touch points along the customer journey, along an audience's experience of a brand that AR can now start to play a role.
I mean, you got the specs as well, right? The glasses.
Yeah, specs, headsets, screens, mobiles. There's a lot of different ways which we can start bringing things to life for clients today.
Yeah. And Hassan, did you ever envisage yourself being in the position that you're in? Because if I recall a LinkedIn post by this guy, actually, you need to get this guy's reaction. He claims to have done over, was it 55 flights?
It was 45.
45 flights.
Yeah, it was actually 44.
That's impressive.
Oh, maybe it was 42 at the time, actually.
Of which I think I've only seen you at the airport once, right? When I was
exactly.
in Riyadh, right? Do I know this guy? Does he know me? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Did you envisage yourself to be doing what you're doing today? And how did you end up doing what you're doing?
Did I envisage? No. How I ended up, I think my story is a bit unconventional. So I just graduated from university, studied law. And then
so did I.
So did Vish.
Oh God, I got two lawyers here.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's the point. That's exactly the point.
And I was in the UK. So I grew up in Dubai. I was in the UK, and then I think like most people, most graduates are doing, I had two like training contract offers, which is the way the legal path would go for a solicitor in the UK. But they were delayed because they were actually not starting for a while, and then they got postponed till later because of COVID. So I ended up, like most people do, you message as many people as you can on LinkedIn and see who's willing to at least have a conversation. And that led me down the path of a Vishal Badiani. And so it kind of started from there.
He's got good chat on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
He's got good chat. I can't lie.
So, I mean, nothing happened immediately, but then like an opportunity arose where it was a shorter term contract. And yeah, I think given my age, which was, I think people don't like talking about it, but I think it is helpful because I am, especially if you are interested in it. I've always been around tech. I've always been interested in technology, media. So I consume a lot, use a lot. I was making content at one point. So Snap as a platform was really interesting for me because I was already making content on the platform as a creator. So to be able to join and think from the angle of how do we get brands to use these lenses in the right way and how do we make them in the right way so people are engaging. But fast forward now, I couldn't say if I would have stayed in the industry, but like similar to Vish, I think it's probably like it's a thing amongst, so I think I'm Gen Z by a month. It's very hard for, maybe I am, or maybe I'm millennial. Either way, it's hard for us to.
Which would you rather be?
I think my friends are all millennial, so I can't be the only Gen Z. So I'd rather be millennial. But I think there's definitely like this entrepreneurial era and people do want to do their own thing. So that was always a goal, but I suppose in the right way and in an industry that I like. And it just so happened that I had great 3-4 years at Snap and I loved the technology I was around. And there was obviously a wider world of it out there. And here we are today. And then I happened to find someone that I could tolerate, who replied to my LinkedIn.
Did you see that? Tolerate.
He replied to my LinkedIn message back in 2019, and here we are.
Nice. I mean, you mentioned something about brands and using technology earlier, right? The AR space I was reading a piece of research set to grow like about $88 billion globally. It's supposed to be like this big economy that's being created. In this region, you see a lot of brands trying to sort of redefine their marketing strategies, whether it's to sort of plug in AR. Some are using AR as the epicenter of a lot of their communication. Like, how do you see this playing out in this region? And are brands doing it right?
Some are doing it really well. Others are still trying to figure it out and they're experimenting. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I think the key thing, and this is why I think having a strategy background is helping us as a business too. We are not in the business of selling. We're in the business of advising. So generally, what we would ask a client is, what's the problem you're trying to solve for? We're not there to try, we don't pull out our website, which has amazing AR experiences, and go, which one of these do you want? Like that, like what type of AR do you want? Like that's not the conversation we're having. We're trying to understand, right, where is it that you're having a particular challenge or a particular opportunity that you want to exploit? And let me go away and explain how we can help you really, turn up the volume or shift the needle in that particular space with something which is a little bit more participatory, a little bit more innovative, a little bit more immersive than a video. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing video. I'm just saying that, there's a lot of agencies out there offering video. So we didn't want to do that. And we're both quite fortunate. Like Hassan was running production at Snapchat and I was running creative strategy. So between the two of us, we had a lot of time talking with clients about why they should do certain innovations and how. So it just kind of made sense when the opportunity came up.
So there's some brands that are not endorsing it, right? I mean, I think it is pretty evident that some brands are a little bit hesitant to go into spaces that they might not see the overarching impact that it might have. Most brands just look at a very sort of linear metric of my ROI. But, this podcast is not purely to talk about marketing, but about the technology itself. And you can use the technology not just from a marketing lens, you can use it to run many initiatives across the organizations, right? Like, if you had to give a brand a piece of advice, of how they can adopt AR, what would be those 2 or 3 pointers?
I have a caveat.
I think he should answer because he talks with a lot of clients.
Well, I'm looking at him right now.
Yeah.
So first of all, talk to us.
Oh gosh.
No,
this.
it sounds like I'm being arrogant, but it's true because I think one thing that used to irk me was that I think AR kind of got put into the space of it's just novelty, which it isn't. And it is quite a tough challenge to overcome with a lot of people, clients included, because of what's already been done or because of what other agencies are doing. So if I had to put it simply, just try it in the right way.
Yeah, I think define an objective that you think makes sense, define a budget, and then speak to an agency that really understands what they're doing. I think those probably would be the 3.
Fair. There's some markets are clearly adopting these types of technologies of AR. I had a guest recently, and he's quite big in the space of Web3. He's got some creations that he's already done for the Portuguese tourist authority, which was really empowering what he was doing. And he was sort of saying, my question to him is a similar question for you guys, is which markets are really sort of embracing this technology and have gone miles ahead, and which markets you think are still, in this region, are we quite there yet? So you look at China, you look at the US, they're leading that. The GCC is growing in that space. What piece of advice would you give those sort of slow growth markets of what they should be thinking about? Because at the end of the day, does it come down to the consumer end of endorsement before a brand can sort of get into it? Or does it come down to a behavioral change? And where does that behavioral change come from then?
I think audiences are ready. I think people are ready to, whether that be through the QR code and how normal that's become, all the way through to, how many times do we access the cameras on our phone every day? It's not new behavior. I think brands are naturally going to be slower to pick that up, but they will drive adoption. The more value and utility you can create through these experiences, the more they become part of how someone experiences your brand, whether that be your store, your website, your app, your advertising campaign, whatever it is. And we're getting more and more conversations like this happening with business owners. So we're seeing more and more what you would typically classify as small and medium-sized companies coming to talk to us about how they can use augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality to, reinvigorate how they sell, how customers experience their product, how their service offering is brought to life. So I'd say we're pretty much at that tipping point. I think the biggest challenge to date has been the strength and quality of things like network and hardware and phones and headsets. That's all done. Yes, it will become more accessible as price points move down. But in terms of what you actually need, the infrastructure you need to develop these experiences and launch them, whether it be at scale or whether it be within a room for your showroom, it's all there.
Interesting. Look, I believe the technology we have today is the worst technology you ever have. And Steve Jobs used to sort of express this quite often. And it's something that landed with me quite nicely, which is the phone you have right now and that watch that you have right now, Vish, in a watch that's something to be proud of in 5 years' time, right? AR is also going to keep evolving and evolving. Over the next 5 years, what do you think will be the biggest trends of emerging technologies outside of AR that you think will be coming in the space? Because we're not just talking about AR, we're talking about innovation. So if we just go down that route of innovation for a bit, what do you think, like the next, if you had to call it one or two, what are we thinking?
I guess we can call it mixed reality. So
Okay.
I think when Apple announced the Apple Vision Pro, like even just announced it, that probably paved the way for the next decade of what's to come. Obviously, Snap's already been doing it for a bit with their spectacles, which obviously they've got a new iteration. Wearables. I think wearables are, I think it's still quite a 50-50 thing. I think some people don't want to wear them. Some people are happy to. I think as that starts evolving and adding more actual utility to people's lives, like, which is what you can imagine like a third iteration of the AVP could do, and people could wear it in the streets and stuff, I think that will be, I think that will be big. And I think we've seen wearables in other forms. I think like we've seen I used to think it was so annoying to have to sleep with like a strap or like a wrist strap or whatever. So, but like people get over those, like there's like smart rings now.
Yep.
So to wear like a pair of glasses that are my prescription during the day, but it can give me some information, I could potentially see that. Like whether that's navigation or whether that's just like a notification. But I think wearables in general and that realm of mixed reality. I'm a big gamer. So for example, VR gaming is still actually only getting better because as you say, the technology is evolving. So a game I buy today, I'm not going to be proud of in like 4 or 5 years time. But that's such an exciting world to be in that I could, like some of the games right now are already pretty advanced. So there's always this entertainment and the novelty side of it. So I think both of those are going to increase as wearables and mixed reality kind of becomes more prevalent.
Well, I think all of these changes, fundamental shifts, will be powered largely by AI, right? So the ability to scale mixed reality experiences and make information appear virtually around you in the world. That will all, like right now, AI generally, we use AI a lot, but it is generally for the back end of what we do.
Yeah.
It's not for the front end of what we do. I think it will move more and more to the forefront. For example, I don't know, right now, if you have, let's say you're an e-com brand and you have 10,000 SKUs and you have a challenge with return rates because people can't fully understand when you write the dimensions of your product on your app, what that actually means. So when you get it delivered, it's smaller or bigger than they expected, so they want to give it back. For example, that could be very easily fixed with life-size augmented reality. The challenge today is scanning and launching that singular product is not a huge challenge, but it doesn't make sense if you have 50,000 SKUs and those SKUs are changing and the prices are changing and. Again, I think with the way AI is moving, things like this will stop to be a challenge. So yeah, I think mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality will all become far more valuable, far more, utility driven. But a lot of that will be powered by AI and machine learning. Interesting.
I mean, while you guys were talking, I was thinking about those supermarkets that you have. I know there's an Amazon few in London where you go in, you don't pay, you just leave with what you've got and it's just scanned what you've put in your basket, right? And then you've got ones in Japan which you just select what you want and you just push it and then off you go and then it comes delivered to you. Those experiences are changing. Do you ever foresee that, let's take those supermarkets as an example where, is the future over the next 5 years or so where you take Q-commerce, because social commerce is quite big now. You take Q-commerce and you bring that into an AR space. Do you ever foresee that becoming, or do you see it more in a VR space? Because let's not forget, when you speak to someone specialized in VR, they get quite tight about when you mention AR being very similar, but they're not similar. They're quite different, right? But do you see those areas of experiences coming into spaces of AR or VR?
I honestly, and I don't know whether this is because of all the Kool-Aid I drank while I was at Snap. But I hope not. I hope
Why?
They're not fully virtual experiences because I like the real world. I like the idea of going out to a shop, and I believe that those experiences can be made so much cleaner and without friction, without needing for us all to escape into goggles.
So you would never want to?
No, not that I would never want to, but no, I don't think I'd want to live there.
No, seriously,
like, similarly, I think, and like, probably like, I think my generation spends a lot of time online as it is. But I think, like, for example, Pokemon Go was one of the best things that ever happened for me. Like the fact that there was a game that made people go outside was like, it was nuts, right? And there was like all these, there was a health benefit. It logged it with like how many, like if the more you walked, things would happen in the game and stuff. I think that's so cool. And that's kind of like where like...
That's mixed reality. That's the core of mixed reality, where like, yes, there are digital, virtual things around you, but you are still taking part in the real world. And I don't know, like, we're human beings at the end of the day. We crave connection, we crave conversation, we crave, you know, all of like the good and the bad things that come with that. And, you know, I like that whole like Ready Player One world.
Yeah.
Like that is scary.
That's what
that is a scary. Like, and so, yeah, if the world deteriorates and we're no longer able to go outside, cool. Like then I would say, yeah, cool.
I'll live in the headset.
I'll live in the headset.
But I find it quite interesting for someone who's borderline between millennial and Gen Z, that you wouldn't want to go into a virtual world like that or to live in a virtual world like that.
No.
Yeah, the technology is advancing for us to enter into that. I think is inevitable. We're going to have a lot of experience like that, where you think of travel, you think of even potential, you know, the healthcare industry. You want to see a doctor, maybe you have to pair goggles, and it's much more immediate. There's definitely a benefit in some cases.
100%.
Also, the guy I was speaking with recently was talking about that, you know, sensory signals of smell are being done by pulsing your brain. You put this like hat on, and it sends pulses, and you can suddenly
just
smell.
Listen to what you're saying.
Like, it's crazy.
Just listen to how crazy that sounds. Like who wants to do that today? Like,
I wouldn't want pulses, but I wouldn't mind going into another world just to.
Yeah, but what, for an hour?
Yeah.
I think it starts to
yeah, for an hour.
Yeah,
like, but not for like a day.
Fair, but the whole point of this was, I just started this conversation of supermarkets coming into an AR or VR space, because we are all about convenience.
So look, I believe that there could, like, if your starting point was I want to create a virtual mall, yes, I think there are ways you could draw people into that in that space the same way you would with a physical mall. I only offer brands that are available on Tokyo High Street. Yeah, cool. I will come to your virtual space to buy that because I can't get that product anywhere else. But would I go there to replace all my other shopping? Like to go to Tesco's or to go to, you know, Carrefour or Spinneys? No, I don't think I would.
Okay, interesting.
And do we need to? Like, you can order online anyway as it is. Like,
that's convenience, and VR will add that extra layer of convenience, right? So you'll be able to but sense, look, observe, I want this and I want that.
It's like, you know, you get these games, right? You get these like cooking simulators. Like, just go to your kitchen. Like, you need, like, why have I got a cooking
So again, I feel like the mixed reality hasn't got to the point yet today where it's fully integrated in your world.
So it's a great area then.
Yeah, but I do believe, for example, cooking, learning how to play an instrument, even, you know, gaming tutorials. Right now, like over the last 10 years, some of the biggest YouTube channels are people playing games and teaching everyone else how to play games.
Yeah.
That could be done really coolly in a mixed reality space. Like if you imagine being able to, currently you type a recipe, you watch a video and you follow the instructions and you're going back, you're moving the video back and forth and you're scrolling to the bottom of the page to get your recipe list. That could all be done in your glasses. So you're still part of your kitchen. People can still
I really want to cook with glasses on. What if you set yourself on fire?
I'm wearing glasses. I wear glasses. Like
glasses. I thought you meant like the Oculus.
No, not the goggles. I mean just glasses, right? So you got full pass through.
Just like overlay. Like this is
just an overlay. So there would be small screens in the distance telling you exactly what you need to do. So you wouldn't need to, your wife or your kids could still come to the kitchen and talk to you. They could still get, oh no, but I want my cake cooked like this, like cool, like that could still work. I think being fully in the goggles, immersed in a virtual world, I think
Fair.
I still don't think we're quite there yet, but I can still see use cases for it. Like, for example, if you're in a home office environment and you want to have really, really high quality, because your office is virtual and you've got people all over the world, I can see an Apple Vision Pro use case for that. I could imagine using that instead of looking at a screen right now. I think it's a way better experience for communication, for making genuine interactions feel more personal when you're talking about collaboration and creative work. But yeah, I don't see it as somewhere people will want to spend like 7 or 8 hours a day yet.
We can go on and on and on about this, right? Because I think it's just a matter of opinion, but also I guess it's always one of those topics where is the borderline on some of these. Now, if you just for a minute, it's like come a bit closer to home in this region, right? This amazing region of the GCC that I think is empowering a lot of new startups, new technology advancements. You've got government initiatives, whether you think of here in Dubai, or you think in Saudi itself. Governments are making a lot of great initiatives, and it's one of very few nations that you see that is really trying to transform the way things are and even change elements of the status quo, right? You have Saudi want to become a digitized economy by 2030. You've got this region who are also making a lot of advances. I mean, you just got to look outside. Everything is so smooth running, right? But do we have the right talent when we think of AR, VR, innovation backed by blockchain technology and those types of things? Do we have enough, or do you see enough talent out there? And if not, what do we need to be doing, or what needs to be done, I would say, to sort of acquire those types of people to come into this industry?
I think there's plenty of talent.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of talent. I think, like similarly to what I said earlier, I think it's about having the right opportunity. You may have someone who's exceptionally gifted at like game design. There's no reason why they can't move into like this forward-thinking technological world we're talking about. And then it's also people like us to be able to provide those opportunities. So by trying to get the adoption of this higher, then you can utilize their talents more. But I think the talent's definitely there. But there's always things you can always do more. Like a lot of people are not formally trained. We're still in an industry that there's no, I think now, like as we see it today, there's some formal training by platforms and other players in the market. But there's been no like, I don't know, I think now there's university degrees actually. There are now university degrees. There's always things where you can do with like either local universities, local institutions to kind of bring that more to the mainstream and give people the option of it. And at least give like these younger people, for example, at the university and high school age, to show them this is the outcome of this kind of learning, because there's still that gray area. People don't know this is what AR is or whatever. And I think now, especially because AI is a buzzword, it gets mixed up all the time. But in short, the talent's there. And I think it's on all of us that live in this region to try and at least help push the needle and get more people out there.
So can you still get into this space, or is it too late for some people? Like, yeah, if somebody wanted a career change right now, who's listening in or watching, and they're just thinking a bit like Vish, okay, not being ageist, okay, but just thinking like, I want to be current and I want to advance my next 10, 15 years, and maybe I need to be thinking about getting into, blockchain technology, or maybe I need to think of AR, or I need to be thinking something different. Is it too late for them?
No, I think the amount of materials and the amount of information that's out there, we're in like a golden era. Like you can learn pretty much anything or for free. So like we don't even have to, and again, you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home for most things. I don't think it's ever too late. I think I'm a good example as well. Fine, I started early, but like I've been in it for a fair bit, probably more than most. But I don't think it's too late.
Well, interesting you say that. And it could be a perception thing. I was at university giving a talk to a few students that were about to graduate, and they were after sort of the presentation, some of them came up to me and was sort of saying, "I'm a bit scared about going into the space of technology." I was like, "Why?" Because one, it's so competitive. And secondly is that I don't know if I have advanced myself enough beyond what my degree has taught me. And I find that very interesting. The fact that you could be studying for 4 years and you still have this fear factor. You guys were you studied law and you're in technology. I did economics and I'm in, the tech space. Those who are studying technology, is tech space right for them? And like, what advice would you give those youngsters who are about to graduate to sort of remove that taboo of it's a scary space? Because I do think there's opportunities for everyone out there. The only difference is maybe the mindset of the new generation of graduates is a bit different from maybe millennials. So I think I wouldn't mind asking you both individually, because you've got one who's on borderline of Gen Z and millennial, and you've got a millennial here. Like, what advice would you give those two guys?
I think for graduates today, it is competitive, but if it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you're willing to put the hours in to really master, I think the key thing is knowing early on what it is that you're good at and what it is you can make money doing. I think with AR in particular, or mixed reality, the challenge there is that even if you understand the technology, you don't understand the market. You don't understand what the value of that skill is. So you are drawn to do other things. Like a lot of the developers we speak to have moved into app development because it's more obvious to see a path to making a return on your investment of time and investment on education. If you're building apps, there'll always be apps. If you start moving into a space like AR and you don't really know how you're going to get paid for doing that, it feels like a risk, right? And we've decided to take this risk after all that we know. Mm-hmm. But would I have felt comfortable doing this 10 years ago when I first came into the region? Probably nowhere near as comfortable. So I think I would say try and figure out, try and do as much research, and to take a lead from Hassan, go and talk to people. Like, people are way more willing to talk than you might believe.
So guys, you could reach out to these guys on LinkedIn any given time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that might or might not work. It depends on how good your approach is.
For sure. And Hassan, what are you?
I think there's always competition. So it depends on how you take it. Like, there's always going to be competition. There's always someone better than you, depending on how you define better. But like similar to what Vish said, I think if you are passionate enough, like once you know what you like, I think hard work always wins. And if it doesn't result in the outcome you expected, you will get a outcome. That could be, and now I know it sounds a bit cheesy and cliche, but there is always a pretty good learning in there if you take it the right way. And I can speak for myself. I think that it's also sometimes like hard work and numbers game. Like, you just got to keep trying. It eventually works out. And if it doesn't work out, you'll have got something out of it. And I think Vish nailed it. I think you need to know what you're good at. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge nowadays, because and I think when you go online, and especially young graduates, you're kind of drawn towards either the shiny thing that someone else is doing, or your friend's doing this. So you kind of want to gravitate to it, but actually just sit and think about, what are you actually good at?
What are you actually really good at? Right?
This element of being envious, right?
Yeah. Like, don't let
FOMO. I think it's also FOMO. Like, we're in a digital era. Like, people can't even sit still when they see their friends at a concert, right? So like, imagine when it comes to like a job opportunity, like, but he's making X, but like maybe he's good at numbers.
Yeah,
right?
Well be, yeah.
Yeah. What are you good at?
I think the worry is the fact that you see people who come into the space of tech, media, but they don't come from that background of study, and they feel in this region, or even anywhere in the world, I guess, that's always going to be an obstacle that they're going to have to overcome, But again, going back to, you think of Dubai itself, and you've got Abu Dhabi who, are thriving with startups, bringing startups in Riyadh. There's a really nice sort of garage of tech startups coming to fruition out there, whether it's in the fintech space or in other verticals, Interesting. I find that interesting.
I think, actually, now that you say it, the other thing I'd say is try and go to where, don't be afraid to go to where the heart of the industries are, right? So if you want to learn about AI, well, Paris has a huge amount of startups in that space, go and intern in Paris. Bring that knowledge back to the region. Go to Silicon Valley. Go to, like, don't, if you're young, especially and you're a graduate, like, go to where, like, you know, if you want to be big in finance, go to Wall Street, right? Like, you know, if you want to be big in tech, go to Silicon Valley. Like, go and find those opportunities, even if it means you have to work for free, even if it costs you money to go and do this. That experience will be so, so powerful when you come back.
Would you guys take on interns?
Yeah, we would.
You would, yeah.
We have.
You have. Nice. Sometimes it's about that openness and willingness, right? To share knowledge and share secret sauce of what you guys are baking and stuff, right? And
yeah. And I think you don't, like, as I said, if you can do that, do that. If you can't do that for whatever reason, like, I think just try and speak to people. You'd be absolutely surprised with how welcoming some people are and how much they're willing to teach you and stuff. And like, just reach out to someone in that industry, whether it's physically, whether it's online, whatever.
I guess pushing solutions out there in the space of AR and other tech, okay. What successes have you seen over the last year?
I think we've done some really, really interesting activation work, which was super successful. We've done a lot of work on social media, on platforms like Snapchat and TikTok in particular, which has delivered really, really impressive numbers in terms of, you know, impressions and all of that boring stuff that you know all about, Nadeem. And I think beyond that, the biggest campaign we've worked on, the most successful, those campaigns have been where there's been a problem to solve. So,
but the success, is it dependent on the project or by the client?
I think the success is defined by the client, but for us, it boils down to the solution that we were able to design for the problem, right? So, for example, we worked very closely with, Diria company for a huge event in London. They needed and wanted to find a way to engage and entertain people when they came into a space. And
we were Tottenham Court Road, I think.
This was on Tottenham Court Road at the outset.
Nice,
so that was a really, really big success and pushed us in all kinds of ways that we weren't ready for. But we were lucky. We had a really, really great client, and we worked tirelessly to make that happen. So
do you find clients like that, or brands, when you say push you, is it pushing you on the creative side or pushing you on technological advancements?
We're a small, like, we've been up and running for 15 months. We've been lucky enough to have the backing of our sister agency in Paris, which has been doing this for 10 years, 10 years plus. But I think the whole, a small agency trying to, manage all of the different stakeholders and all of the different touch points of a big client like Diria company, that's probably what the biggest challenge was. They were actually very, very kind nice. In terms of creative, in terms of feedback, in terms of, understanding and being willing to accept the limitations or the possibilities of the tech. All of that was great, but it's just a lot for a small agency to handle.
Sure.
And then I think the most recent campaign for Middle Beast was really cool. Why don't you talk about the problem that was solving?
So I'm not from the media industry. And so I am given like content creation background and stuff. I'm really big on organic. So I think once you give people the right tools, I think the numbers speak for themselves. So we had a pretty good experience with, Middle Beast is a company we've been working with for a fair bit. Again, amazing people, amazing clients. Did a couple of things for them on social AR, and I'm not sure if I can speak about the numbers, so TBC. Okay. But the numbers were crazy. The numbers were phenomenal, given it was a pure organic push. And again, that's like a different kind of success because the numbers are relative, first of all. The event is only for 3 days, but it pushes us in a way where we can kind of flex on the other side of, okay, we've now made you this beautiful execution. It's got a lot of purpose. It's going to keep people entertained or engaged during these set periods. How do we amplify that further? And to be able to kind of take that forward with them was pretty special, and kind of proved that this is, like, it comes back to something you asked earlier about, what would you tell a brand? I think A, speak to us. B, figure, like, you need to have the right kind of approach and the right purpose behind what you're doing. And then it also has to be executed in the right way. And execution doesn't mean just, okay, it's now existing, scan the QR code. It's actually how you're going to get that out in the world. And I think that's where we were able to do something pretty nice with them. And the concept was nice. So
Hassan, then how do you measure success in a dynamic space like AR?
I think strictly speaking, like if we're talking, I mean, we don't, like, if it's metrics, well, first of all, I suppose, like you said, the client defines success. So let's try and achieve the success they've defined. So if we tick that box, for me personally, if we have, like, again, being in the space, and it's like you said earlier, in a couple of years, some of this stuff will not be nice, like it won't be like cool to look back on. How do we keep pushing in every single project we do? So if we do even something a little, like, as long as it has pushed beyond anything we've done before, that's successful for me. And I think that's what we try to do on a lot of our projects. And I think obviously we've got limitations. So there's platform limitations and stuff. And I think that's where it's very important for us to cultivate an innovation culture within our company and to have the right people that are always thinking similarly. Like, how do we kind of take this forward? That would be, if that's even a metric you can measure.
I mean, Vish has come up with so many metrics in his time that I've known him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got a metric in mind.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, it will boil down. It'll boil down to the client. You know, some clients want followers. Some clients want time spent with brands. Some clients want impressions. Some clients just want it to work, and they want people to convert when they have the experience. So we will design the experience based on what they're looking to achieve. Like the Middle Beast example is really interesting. It takes 25 minutes minimum for a set change on the Big Beast stage. That's 25 minutes that no one wants to move because no one wants to lose their spot. So how do you engage them for that 25 minutes? Well, you create a game that anyone can access from anywhere, point to the sky and play. That's what we did, right? Nice. So yeah, it's a huge success because it turned out that a lot of people, soon to be fully revealed, played with it, and they played with it for a good amount of time, like in each session. Now, when you work something like that out, that works out to be years of time spent with the brand, opt-in time spent with the brand over a 3-day period. Now, you can entertain them, you can entertain people in all kinds of ways. Yeah. Right? Now, that's what we try and do. Nice. Try and find what that success point is and deliver against.
I wish I had that robot that we had on stage once, just to ask this robot.
The AI one.
I didn't like the robot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was in my way.
Was a bit, that's a bit of a weird robot.
I don't think it worked the first time.
No, it did eventually work. I think someone was typing.
Quite possibly, yeah. But now, that was only a year and a half ago. Or, about a year and a half ago, basically, right? Now, a year and a half has progressed so much in AI itself. Can you imagine having that piece of technology today?
So we've seen and played with another bit of tech recently, which is fully, you can literally converse with it, and it's a moving head in AI. Okay. So you can upload whatever you want into that moving head, and it will speak.
Yeah, and you can make it whoever you want.
You can change the voices. So yeah, it's come on a lot.
You can make me.
We could.
Wow.
If you want one of you, another one.
I would love another one. I would love another one. I think I spoke about this once, is that I would love a piece of technology that can be another replica of me, that can just sit somewhere and be me where I can't be because I have to be somewhere else. It'd be amazing. You can have that version of me here right now.
Yeah, we need bigger sponsors to get that on board.
Guys, it's been amazing. We're coming towards the end of the show now. This segment is what I call Espresso Encounters. I'm going to put, usually it's just one guest, but since I've got you guys here, there's going to be two cards here. You guys get to choose who picks the first card. Beneath each card, there's a question. One card will have a question that's been written by the last guest. One card will have a question that's posed by ChatGPT. And as I've been saying on previous episodes, ChatGPT, I've been training ChatGPT over time about the brand. And then also, when we sort of filter out the guests that we want to bring in, we let ChatGPT explore about that person, across the open web. So it already knows a bit about both of you guys, and it's already given me some pre-defined questions, which you didn't see. It wasn't part of the read that you guys had. So I'm going to put this, it's like the Matrix, right? So
can we use ChatGPT to answer the ChatGPT question?
La, as they say. No.
You pick.
You guys get to choose. Okay, so what have you got there? Is that a question?
No.
Ah, let's see.
Huh.
ChatGPT. So you got a question from ChatGPT. So Vish,
Okay.
this is a question for Vish then, just so you guys know it's a question, right?
All right.
So I'll go with Vish first then.
So this is from your last guest.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. In a virtual world, would you be your real self or an alter ego, and why?
Oh, alter ego every single time.
Obviously.
Like, yeah, no, an alter ego. I'd love to correct all my insecurities and be all the things
Yeah.
that I was in my mind's eye. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would have an alter ego.
Alter ego, yeah. Hassan, so yours, okay. If you could invent a completely new sense that humans don't currently have, what would it be? And how would it transform our interactions with technology?
This thing is way too clever nowadays.
I think you got the short straw.
Alter ego.
Whole new sense. I don't know if this counts though. Like a sense when you know someone's being dishonest.
Okay.
So if you can
That's
sense
quite
when
good.
someone's being dishonest, how would that change our
How you interact with technology.
with technology?
Yeah.
Well, imagine if you could only access the tech, if you're being honest.
If you're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's asking, and how would it transform our
Well, that'd
interactions
be-
with technology?
You can only have the cool stuff if you're being honest.
Yeah, I could start gatekeeping everything unless you're an honest person. Like, there's all these things, like, we've all seen the crazy movies of like AI taking over. You can't be, only honest people are allowed to access this.
So
technology.
imagine-
But you could be honest in your negative actions. Like, I want to do this, but
Yeah, but that'd be crazy,
But you can
right?
take that into wearable technology to sense if someone is...
Yeah, but imagine
being
if you got
dishonest.
one price for something if you weren't honest, or there's a gradient of honesty. But then if you're super honest, you get a different price. Because it's just, for example, as a landlord, I would rather have someone that's honest. So I'll have them pay less than someone who's
I mean, it's
dishonest.
getting that Black Mirror route,
It's getting very Black Mirror.
Someone said this in my last episode, actually. This is a very Black Mirror question.
It is,
Nadeem.
because like,
I mean, it is. You have asked a Black Mirror.
yeah.
So it's a Black Mirror question.
Yeah, that would be nuts. If you could just tell, like, if everyone had an honesty meter and someone's like 2 out of 10.
God,
Like,
this is where you need... Hey, can you imagine Jeremy Kyle?
oof.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Don't need the lie detector test
Yeah.
anymore. Guys, look, it's been awesome. I've loved having you guys. Energy's been surreal. Hassan, Vish, thanks so much. Guys, hope you enjoyed it, took something out of it. Stay tuned for our next episode. Subscribe, like, and peace out. Thank you.